come here, you. Hey.
What?
Say $5,000.
Why?
God, why not $1 million?
Well, you know what? Even if we can't sell them right away, we can use them.
The show made them famous overnight. The auctions, the bids, the moment a unit door rolls up and nobody knows what is inside. Millions of people watched every week because the premise was simple and the personalities were larger than life. But behind the cameras, the Storage Wars cast was living a very different story. One man built an entire persona around confidence and success, and was quietly drowning in addiction the entire time. A father and son team became fan favorites and then lost one of them to cancer, before most viewers even knew he was sick. The show's most recognizable villain spent years in court watching his business collapse around him. A couple who bickered, on screen for years, turned out to have problems far more serious than anything the producers captured. And one man died alone in a parking garage 2 days after walking out of jail. Tonight, we are going into the real stories behind Storage Wars. Not the drama the producers designed. The kind that happened when the cameras went home and these people had to figure out what their lives actually were. He was impossible to miss. When he walked into a storage auction during his time on the show, he looked like a man who had already won before the bidding started. Expensive clothes, carefully chosen accessories, a bag full of cash that he carried with a specific kind of casual confidence designed to communicate one thing to every other bidder in the room. He has already decided this is his. Viewers either loved him or found him exhausting. Nobody ignored him. The nickname that attached itself to him captured the persona perfectly. Smooth, polished, always performing success. His resale business moved merchandise efficiently. Items acquired at auction were processed quickly and sold through his retail operation. He understood people. He understood how to close. He had the kind of magnetic quality that made him a natural fit for television. But what the camera found was only the surface. Behind the presentation, he had been fighting a serious methamphetamine addiction for years. By the time the show pushed him into national visibility, the addiction had complete control of his life. The fame did not help. It added a new layer of pressure to a situation already past the point of sustainability. Every embarrassing moment, every imperfection, every difficult episode was now broadcast to millions of people. The shame that comes with that kind of public exposure made everything harder. His business kept running, his performance kept going, but the distance between the person he was presenting and the person he actually was had become too wide to maintain. In early 2013, he was arrested for drug possession. He posted bail within hours and walked out of the facility trying to act like everything was manageable. He visited his partner and told her he felt devastated and scared. He sounded lost in a way that the people who heard him could recognize, but did not yet understand the full weight of. 2 days later, she found him in his vehicle inside a closed garage at his business. The engine was running. He was 40 years old. The business he had built employed 12 people. Warehouse staff, retail clerks, drivers, office workers. Ordinary people who had built their livelihoods around an operation that depended entirely on one man continuing to show up. The morning after his death, those 12 people arrived expecting a regular workday. By midday, it was clear there would be no more regular workdays. The business was finished. 12 families lost their primary income in a single morning, with rent due and groceries needed and bills that did not pause because something terrible had happened. The man who walked into every auction looking like he owned it had been quietly drowning the entire time. The persona was the only thing keeping him above water, and when it stopped being enough, there was nothing underneath it. He appeared as a recurring presence on the show across several seasons, and he brought something to those episodes that the louder, more confrontational personalities could not provide. Calm, genuine warmth. The specific quality of a man who had spent decades doing something he actually loved and had developed real expertise rather than a performed version of it. He and his son worked together, and that dynamic, a father teaching his son to see value where other people saw junk, to walk through a storage unit and understand what was actually there, was one of the more genuinely human things the show produced across its run. Their shop in California drew customers from significant distances, not because of the television exposure, but because the inventory was good, and the people running it knew what they were doing. He had spent decades in storage yards across California before any camera knew his name. That accumulated knowledge showed in the way he moved through an auction. While other buyers were still processing what they were looking at, he had already seen it. In early 2023, he began feeling symptoms that did not resolve. Fatigue that went deeper than tiredness, shortness of breath that persisted, weight loss that was not explained by anything he was doing differently. When he finally sought medical attention, the diagnosis was stage 4 lung cancer, aggressive, advanced, with limited options remaining. He passed away peacefully in March 2023 at 67 years old, surrounded by family. His son revealed afterward that he had been fighting the illness for approximately 6 months before his death. He had kept it quiet. He had kept going. Fans who had watched him work and had felt the genuine warmth he brought to every episode learned what had happened and understood what they had lost. He was one of the most genuinely enjoyable personalities the show produced. Not because he was the most dramatic or the most aggressive bidder, but because he was clearly having fun. He was not primarily chasing profit. He was chasing the story behind the object, the history, the mystery of what had accumulated in a space over decades. He left the show voluntarily after 4 seasons while it was still at the height of its popularity, describing his exit as a return to being a professional slacker. The joke was affectionate and self-aware. He knew what he was. A spin-off followed and lasted 1 season. Then he stepped back from the television world and largely disappeared from public view for several years. In 2019, he was involved in a motorcycle accident in Los Angeles that came very close to ending his life. A car pulled out without looking. He and his partner of 30 years were both on the bike. The collision threw them both. His injuries required 9 hours of surgery. He was in a medically induced coma for a week. Broken bones throughout his body. The recovery was measured in months. What received significantly less coverage was what happened to his partner. Her back was broken, her spine was damaged. Her recovery was slower and more painful and less public. 3 years after the accident, she was still in rehabilitation, still working to move without pain, still carrying the physical cost of a moment that lasted less than a second. The accident and its long aftermath placed enormous pressure on a relationship that had lasted 3 decades. They eventually separated. Both of them lost more that day than the headlines about his ICU stay conveyed. He recovered sufficiently to return to the show in later seasons, reminding viewers why they had responded to him in the first place. His future on the program remains uncertain. The husband and wife auctioneer team were the backbone of the show's auction sequences for years. Their energy set the pace. Their presence gave the bidding sequences their rhythm and their life. Behind that professional partnership, they were navigating private emergencies that the cameras never captured. In 2014, the husband woke up one morning experiencing double vision. Before he fully understood what was happening, he collapsed. His wife performed CPR. Doctors later told them that intervention saved his life. Emergency surgery followed. He gave up a 4-decade smoking habit in the aftermath. He rebuilt. That would have been enough for most people. It was not the end of their difficult years. In 2020, their son was visiting someone in Arizona when a drive-by shooting left him critically injured. The bullet caused internal bleeding severe enough to be immediately life-threatening. He called emergency services himself. Paramedics stabilized him. He was airlifted for emergency surgery. His father described the outcome plainly. A lot of people came together to save their son. It could have ended very differently. Their son survived. He faced a fractured spine and a long rehabilitation. The family that had already survived one near catastrophe found themselves in the middle of another, and emerged from it the same way they had emerged from the first. Intact, together, and grateful in a way that people who have come close to permanent loss tend to be grateful. He built his entire television identity around being the man nobody wanted to see walk through the door. The loud confidence, the competitive aggression, the catchphrase that silenced a room and told every other bidder they had already lost. He was good at it, and the show needed someone who was good at it. In 2012, he sued the production company and the network that broadcast the show. His claims were that certain aspects of the program were staged, that items of significant value were planted in storage units before filming, and that some participants had prior knowledge of what specific units contained before the bidding began. He said these complaints had led directly to his removal from the show. The legal battle that followed lasted months, consumed enormous financial resources on both sides, and played out under significant public scrutiny. While the case proceeded, his auction business deteriorated. Without the television exposure, revenue declined sharply. The IRS became involved in his finances. Business partners distanced themselves. Some filed their own claims against him for unpaid debts. Staff left as operations slowed. When the lawsuit eventually settled, the terms were kept confidential. People familiar with the case described the financial outcome as insufficient to offset what he had lost during the process. He returned to smaller-scale operations. The business empire was gone. The legal battle had cost him the company, much of his professional reputation, and several years of his life. His son had grown up in the auction business, learning the trade from the inside. The expectation was that he would eventually take it over and carry the family name forward in the industry. Instead, the public controversy that surrounded his father became something he was identified with at school, in social settings, in every environment where the family name was recognized. The questions were constant. The associations were unwanted. The identity he was being handed was not one he had chosen. He eventually stepped back entirely, changed his public presence online, removed connections to the show and the business, built a separate life at a distance from everything the Storage Wars years had created. What was meant to be a family legacy became the thing that fractured the family. They were never married. That distinction matters because it shaped what happened when everything fell apart. Without a formal legal marriage, their separation did not involve a divorce, but ending a shared business, a shared home, and a co-parenting arrangement for 2 children was complicated regardless of what the paperwork did or did not say. Their on-screen relationship had always been defined by friction rather than warmth. Viewers who watched their seasons understood that what they were seeing was not performed. The tension was real, and it had been building long before anyone put cameras in front of them. The separation became official in 2018 and became public. In 2020, she remained on the show and continued building a public presence as a single parent. She has been consistently clear that she handled the majority of the parenting responsibilities throughout the relationship, and that the transition to managing that alone was less of an adjustment than it might otherwise have been. He left the show and the public eye together. A domestic violence charge in 2021 ended his involvement with the production permanently. She has since moved forward. She has spoken openly about the current chapter of her life, and by every public indication she is in a significantly better place than the years captured on camera suggested she was heading toward. His trajectory has been quieter and considerably less public. Not every Storage Wars story ends in crisis. One of the show's auctioneers appeared for 4 seasons, made a genuine impression with her energy and professionalism, and then made a deliberate choice to step back from the television world entirely. She returned to her family's auction business, which she co-runs with her father across several Western states. She organizes online auctions, manages large-scale events, works as a contract auctioneer for fundraising events across the country. She makes music. She works in leather craft. Her life outside television is full and varied, and entirely her own. She has said openly that the show was never part of her long-term plan. It was a chapter. An interesting and valuable one, but a chapter. When it ended, she was happy to return to the things that had always mattered most to her. That clarity about what the television meant and what it did not mean is the thing that let her leave without losing anything she actually needed. Not every cast member had that clarity available to them. One recurring buyer whose careful approach and professional demeanor made him a recognizable presence to regular viewers faced serious legal trouble after his time on the show. The charges were significant. The defense required resources his family did not have. His mother was 73 years old. She had spent her entire life working and saving. She owned her home outright. She had built a modest but genuinely secure life through decades of careful choices. When her son called from jail, she remortgaged the house. She emptied her savings. She paid for lawyers and expert witnesses and the full cost of a legal defense that ultimately was not enough. He was convicted. She lost everything. She now rents a small apartment and works part-time and visits her son when she can afford the cost of getting there. The television appearance lasted a handful of episodes. The consequences are still ongoing. Storage Wars ran for years because it gave people something genuinely compelling to watch. The suspense of the unknown, the personalities, the occasional extraordinary find that reminded everyone why the whole enterprise made sense. But the people who made that television were living actual lives that the format could only partially contain. A man who performed confidence so convincingly that nobody saw what was underneath it until it was too late. A father who spent decades building real expertise and real warmth, and then was gone before most people knew he was sick. A long partnership that ended in legal charges and a permanent exit. A lawsuit that destroyed a business and fractured a family. Two people on a motorcycle who both paid an enormous price for a second of someone else's inattention. And a mother who mortgaged her home trying to save her son, and lost anyway. Fame is a peculiar thing. It makes people visible in ways that have nothing to do with what they actually need. It creates the impression that the camera is capturing something true, when often it is only capturing what survives the edit. The real stories were always happening somewhere the cameras were not pointed. Subscribe for more real stories every week. Drop a comment telling me which of these hit you hardest, and which one the show never came close to preparing you for. I will see you in the next one.